All right, everybody, welcome back. We got two guests on tonight. It's not usual. I've usually just got one person I'm talking to here. So we have Dennis and Joe from Initial Ascent. Now, these guys have created a product that is outstanding, but not just with their packs. They've also gone out and both of them live a healthy lifestyle. They really enjoy, maybe sometimes not so much enjoy, but they get after it in the gym. They definitely make sure that they're healthy and fit and they live the lifestyle. They're not just making products for people. And that's something that I really was drawn to. And then on top of that, Dennis just has this Southern draw that isn't from Idaho. And it just reminds me of home being from North Carolina. So these guys are real down to earth. They know what they're doing, know what they're talking about, and they go out and they just get after it. So I guess we'll start with you, Joe. In a nutshell, who are you?
Well, I'm Dennis's sidekick. No, so my name's Joe Elliston. I've been out here in Idaho now since 2004. I'm originally from Kansas. So Western style hunting is new to me. New in the fact that I didn't start doing it till 2004, 2005. But yeah, I grew up in Kansas. I'm a flatlander. I grew up waterfowl hunting, quail hunting. We always made a trip up to South Dakota to go pheasant hunting. Did a little bit of whitetail, but not much. But yeah, I grew up there until the mid '90s, and went to school, University of Kansas, and then decided, you know what, needed to spread the wings a little bit, and where else better place to do that than Las Vegas? So I moved out to Las Vegas. Never been west of the Rockies, and it was a culture shock beyond culture shock. I jumped into corporate America with Black & Decker and did a bunch of roles for them, and moved all over the country for them for a lot of years, and ended up here in Idaho in like I said earlier, 2004, and just never looked back. Fell in love with the Western style backpacking, the hunting. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I mean, I'm a father of two. We got two boys. It's been a lot of fun seeing them grow up. They're now young men. And one's 21, who is Brody, and then Ty, my youngest, is 19. And then my wife and I have been married for upwards of almost 27 years now. So long time. So that's a little bit about me.
Man, 27 years. I just turned 31 on Saturday. So we'll just
Oh,
leave
yeah.
that there. I and then that's awesome that you got two boys, family men, and you're still getting after being an entrepreneur. That's rough. That's hard to have such a passion for hunting and entrepreneurship and be a good father at the same time. So that's a lot to balance there. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's and what's neat is to see the transition with my kids. Both my kids are entrepreneurs. They both have started their own businesses at an early age, and just to see them take that on has been awesome to watch. And it's hard to watch them fail, but in the same breath, it's fun to
I
watch
think
them
we
fail
lost
and
him for
see
a
how they
second.
learn and see what they're going to do different. It's been
It was
a
just
pretty
getting
neat
good.
journey.
He's a statue.
Maybe he'll come back here in a sec. This is the
Wow.
downfall of not doing them in person.
Right.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll get back to Joe here in a second. Dennis. So we got Stone Cold Steve Austin here. I mean, Dennis from Initial Ascent here. So, Dennis, who are you in a nutshell?
Well, in a nutshell, I was born and raised in Northwest Florida, and I too was a flatlander. Spent my time as a kid hunting, fishing, trapping, and just being outside all the time. That was back when your parents turned you loose and just told you to be back before dark or shortly after.
When the
And
street lights turn on, right?
well, we didn't have street lights. I lived on a
Oh no,
dirt road back
when the
there.
lightning bugs show up.
Yeah, no kidding. I lived on a dirt road, and the nearest neighbor was about 3/4 of a mile, and had a big old pond back there, and we had lots of land. We had a little bit of our own, but we had some paper company land back behind us, and man, I spent my time as a kid either fishing in that pond or exploring that land back there behind us, and I don't even know how many acres it was, but did a lot of we did coon hunting back there. We did deer hunting, whitetail deer hunting. So I did both the stand. I sat in stands growing up, and I did we did some dog hunting too. So there's Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a pretty good thunderstorm going on. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. We got you.
Yeah.
So, but I kind of grew up doing that, and the big game was the hogs, if you call that big game, and then whitetail deer, and they weren't real big game back there. they were they were pretty tiny, really. And it was so
Large
different.
dogs with antlers, right? That's like
Basically, basically, and there were so many of them back there. We had season, and this was a huge contrast to when I moved out here, where you got maybe 1-2 tags a year. There, we bought a hunting license. You didn't have tags. I mean, we had all of October to archery hunt. You could kill 1 buck a day, and during archery season, you could kill a doe as well. Then come the weekend of Thanksgiving, we had 4 days where we could hunt with the rifle, and that was a buck a day as well. And then it's about
wow.
January 10th it started up, and it went through December 10th, went through January 31st. And that first weekend was doe weekend, so you could kill a buck a day and 2 does a day during the doe weekend, and then after that it was a buck a day. So, I mean, you can imagine how the quality might have suffered around those parts, especially with dog hunters. And we didn't have a whole lot of
Yeah.
public land, but there was that paper company lease and that sort of thing was back there. So, I grew up. My dad, he hated sitting in tree stands. He hated being cold. Um, the most hunting that my dad used to do, I mean, he loved running dogs, but he would go out in the cow pasture, check the cows, and have his 30-30 with him. And if he saw a buck out there, it may or may not leave with him in the back of his pickup. But all from the warmth of his pickup. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So anyway, moved out here in 2000, and been out here for the last 23 years. So I've got a wife and 3 kids. I've got twins, boy and a girl, that are 20, and my youngest is 17. So got pretty much one more, out of the house, and my wife and I are empty nesters. So we're trying to figure out what we're going to do after that.
Right. And what's awesome is, first off, I'm going to just commend you for not losing your Southern drawl, because I can't, either it was thicker before you moved out there, or you just haven't lost it. I lost it, I think, because I spoke Spanish for 2 years and then came back to Utah. My wife laughs at me because whenever I'm speaking to people back home, or when I get frustrated, my Southern draw comes out. But
Yep.
other than that, it's pretty even keel. But then, we were talking too at Mountain Archery Fest, and I believe you were talking about your younger son, but you got to witness firsthand our 8-year-old son being a little rambunctious. And I think so. Dennis was talking with my wife, and they were sitting there. I was taking the older boys over, and we were shooting a course or the practice range. And she's talking with you about how rough it is with Asher, and he likes to argue and do his own thing and all this. And then all of a sudden she looks over his shoulder, and he's in the construction zone on top of the biggest dirt pile that you can find.
And
It's like, there's proof.
yeah, and you know what? I thought about that. My son would have been doing the same thing, except for he would have crawled on top of that caterpillar and fired it up and started moving stuff around.
Oh man, I'm glad he didn't do that. Yeah. And she said something like Asher said, "Well, the fence was down. You said don't go over the fence and the fence was down. So I just, it was already down. It's available."
I'm telling you, Asher is gonna. I only spent probably half hour sitting there watching him and listening to him and everything. Asher is gonna do great things in life. I mean, that kid, he is. I'm telling you, he is sharp and
Mhm.
he's a little bit on edge. I'm very used to that with the son that I raised as well. But man, my son turned into be a fine young man and is going on to do great things. So
Yeah.
I think Ash will be the same way.
And that's why, yeah, we try really hard not to stamp it out of them, but at the same time, man, it is like when you have to plan for an extra 10 to 15 minutes before you leave somewhere just so that you can sit him down, explain why the schedule changed and all these things just for him to get it through his head. Like, man, it's rough, but I agree. And we're trying really hard not to stamp it out of him because he's definitely got some awesome energy that'll come in handy down the road when he's not in my house
You
anymore.
bet.
Okay.
You bet. When he's not in my house anymore.
But exactly, someone else's problem.
Right.
Uh, and then so Joe, you were telling us a little bit about your two sons, and then we had the unfortunate incident there with the lightning strike or whatever happened that knocked you off. But what's what were you saying about your two sons that you've raised?
Yeah, so both my boys, it's exciting to see. Both of them have gone out and started their own businesses, and just to see them take that path, and to see them go through the trials, tribulations, that they're going through trying to manage a business at an early age. It's rewarding. It's a lot of fun as a parent just to watch them, and then it's fun to have those conversations where you sit down and just talk about business with your kids. That's a pretty unique experience for kids that are 19 and 20, I think 21 now. So it's been a lot of fun just kind of going through that with them.
So you're saying that one of these days they will start to understand that dad knows what he's talking about. That's what you're
It
saying. There's
happens.
hope. There's
Yeah. Yeah, there is that phase. That
that's
phase will
that's
come.
awesome.
It will come. So
Because right now it's just you got to test everything dad says. Because who knows? Dad could be right. Maybe you didn't really live these things. But yeah, no, I love being a parent. It's one of the most rewarding and most frustrating things at the same time. It can take you to your highest highs and your lowest lows in the same day. And but it really does. It's one of the most rewarding things. So for those people out there, I do say, like, I'll never tell someone go have a child, but if you're wanting to or you have that inkling to, I say go ahead and get on it because it really is one of the most rewarding things out there.
it shows you real quick how
So
selfish we are, right?
yeah.
Amen.
Oh yeah.
It does.
Yes, it does. And you know what though? I'll still be a little selfish and make them do the things that I like to do until they like it. No, but it really is awesome to be a parent. And I absolutely love that. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit because both it seems like most of us. So you came from the Midwest. I think Kansas is considered the Midwest, Joe, and then Dennis, you came from the East Coast. I've come from the East Coast, and we all fell in love with the public land out here, the mountains, getting out, enjoying it, backpacking style, or even just being able to roll up 10 minutes and be at a trailhead and be able to go for days, without signal. We all kind of fell in love with either that style of hunting, backpacking, camping, just adventure, and the fact that we'll never really conquer the mountains. When I first came out here, we had the Appalachian Mountains in North Carolina. And driving through Kansas, I don't think there's many mountains out there. I think I don't know. I could see Colorado from when I entered Kansas, but and then Florida. Florida's pretty flat as well, but there's a lot of trees blocking your view.
Right.
We with the Appalachian foothills, which is what people out here would call them, but the Appalachian Mountains are a lot shorter and smaller, and they seemed a lot more manageable. And then you come out here, and there's just so much public land, big old mountains. I guess Joe, what was your first adventure? What do you remember when you first got into the mountains that got you really hooked and not wanting to go back to Kansas?
Yeah, I think it's it's interesting. We're talking about our kids, and early on there was a couple dads, two of my good friends, that we decided we wanted to go out with the boys, up in the mountains, go backpacking. And we kind of coined it man camp. I had my two boys and they were young. I think Ty was probably maybe 7 or 8 years old. Brody was 9 or 10 years old, so they were very young. And then my other friend, he had a couple boys, and then the third dad, he had two sons as well. So I mean, we had a pretty good group, and that was actually my very first backpacking trip. Was when we went to that very first man camp, and we took all the boys up there. Um, I didn't know what to expect. I borrowed a friend's backpack. It was an REI backpack. And, the only camping I had ever done was, when I was a kid on the, back in Kansas, when we'd go float a river or something like that. So I didn't know what to take. And so I took what I knew, which was a lot of heavy stuff. I want to say I went in almost like 83, 84 pounds for a 2-day backpacking trip with my boys. And,
Mm.
it was insane, carrying that in there. It was only like a 2-mile hike, but I was as big as a Volkswagen Bug on the back of my backside. It was huge, um, going in. And of course, I had two tarps. I had a lantern, a full size lantern. I had a Coleman stove. I mean, you name it. I literally carried it up there because I'd never done it before. And we got up there, and I had a tent literally from high school. um, Man, I was a train wreck going in there. But you know what? We got up
Was
there,
it a
and
canvas
you
wall
don't
tent? Okay.
pretty close, pretty close. Um, you don't know what you don't know, though, right? And so I backpacked in. I just thought, well, this is just how it is, until I saw my buddies and what they were carrying, and quickly I started to learn gear's important. But we got up there, and it was amazing. It was an amazing weekend until the second night, and it absolutely stormed like crazy. And I can remember reaching over and grabbing Ty, who was, like I said, probably 7 years old, 8 years old, and I pulled him over to me because I could feel him shaking. But when I did that and I pulled him over, he was in a Coleman sleeping bag, right? And we had three of those. I pulled Ty over close, and he was literally sleeping in soaking water. And it was just like, oh man, this is miserable for him. He never complained, but the next day we got up, and there was no way I was getting a Coleman sleeping bag to dry out. So I think I went in at 83, 84 pounds. I probably went out close to 100 because everything was so soaking wet. And I can remember people parting the ways. It was like the Red Sea parting as I was coming down because I was so wide, with this giant beetle on my back. And that was my first experience backpacking. And once I got down that mountain, I knew one thing for sure: there had to be a better way of doing this. And that was my first experience in the backcountry, was backpacking. Then I just fell in love with the backpacking side of it. I wasn't into the hunting as much at that point. I did a lot of backpacking and just started buying, new gear, um, bringing my weight down within reason, and just getting out and experiencing what I'd never had an opportunity to see coming from Kansas. So it was, we're going to hit this trail, and we're going to hit this trail. And that was kind of our thing every weekend for years, of just getting out, seeing what God had to offer, which was amazing.
No, that's awesome. I was going to ask you how you guys came up with the idea of Initial Ascent, but I think you already answered that. So, okay. Man, I can't imagine an REI backpack with 80 pounds in it. Like, I mean, you might as well just had a JanSport on at that
Oh
point.
man.
And did you have like cans of refried beans and stuff too, like canned like
Oh,
beef
I'm sure
stew
we
and
did. Yeah, I'm sure we had all of that. Full on coffee
oh
can. I
man,
mean, whole 9 yards. Yeah. But it was, you know
I
what, though, I
had
look back, like I
and
said,
I
man.
no, go ahead.
No, you just don't know what you don't know until you get a chance to experience it
Yeah,
and see it. So it was fantastic.
yeah, and your buddies didn't really. they didn't really do a pack audit for you, I guess. Or, I could even see them at the trailhead kind of chuckling and be like, oh man, he's
Oh,
in for it. He is in
well,
for it.
it's funny you say that because literally, and I got to get the picture from my buddy Ed. They snapped a photo of me leaving. He said they literally just because I took off a day early because I couldn't get anything dried out, and they literally were
Mm.
laughing hysterical watching me walk away because I look like a beetle going out there. Oh,
Oh man, that's crazy. That's
yeah,
crazy. But that's a good learning experience, and I definitely would say a lot of flatlanders would not know what to pack, and that just kind of goes back to like people that have experienced that, and it's a big reason why I enjoy talking about gear and getting it out there as much as I can, whether it be on social media or YouTube or just chatting with people in person, is because I forget, and I love having those conversations with people that are new to, again, backpacking or gear or boots or whatever it is, bows, and going back to the start, even though for me it was only a couple of years ago, but still sharing that knowledge with people and breaking it down with them like, hey, you don't have to have the nicest of nice things, but here's where you can start. This is where I started, kind of deal. And without going through those experiences, you definitely that you'll never forget that, and I'm sure your kids will never forget that either. And so
yeah,
that's a great experience to have. Sucks in the moment, but it's one of those you look back on, you're like, all right, I learned from that, so
yeah.
that's awesome. That's a cool story there. And then Dennis, what about you? What got you hooked on the mountains out here after being able to shoot a buck a day and a doe a day, and going from that to maybe possibly drawing a tag for the entire season?
Yeah, it was definitely a wake-up call for me. And I mean the whole experience of Western style hunting is 180 degrees from what I was used to. And not only the terrain, but the animals themselves. Um, the the number of tags that you could have, or the number of animals that you could legally harvest. Um, Took some getting used to for sure. Um, my first experience when I came out in 2000, that fall, I got to go on my first elk hunt, and what an experience it was. At the time, I was into horses, and so were the buddies of mine that I was hanging out with, and they um, had done this elk hunt for years, and the guy that was kind of in charge of it, he planned out the entire thing, knew where we were going. He had two wall tents. One was the sleep tent, one was the cook tent. He planned out meals, basically 2 meals a day. He would get up, and he was a Dutch oven, you know, type cooking chef, whatever. He was the man. He and I'd never been around Dutch ovens either, so I didn't even know what a Dutch oven. So he brings out all this stuff. We spent probably we I don't know how much money a piece we spent, but there was probably six of us, I guess, on that trip. And this guy got up 4 in the morning, started cooking things. I mean, we had a full on breakfast that came out of the Dutch oven before we ever left camp in the morning, well before daylight. And um, we would have sandwich fixings. We got to fix our own sandwich, got, chips and all this stuff that we could throw in our packs for the day. And we were on horses, so we were traveling on horses and doing that whole thing. And then when we got back, no matter what time it was, he was doing this fancy meal. We'd have enchiladas one night, we'd have barbecue ribs one night, all done in the Dutch oven. This was my experience. This was my first experience elk hunting, and I'm thinking, this is okay. Now, I've never been a part of anything like this in my life. And so now the one thing they didn't tell me was they had so we took multiple pickups, all of them, pulling trailers, and hauling the horses, but there were a couple of pickups that were only for food, and there was one pickup that was only for beer. I don't know that in a week's time that I could see so much beer consumed in one spot and still be able to go the next morning. It was unbelievable. So we didn't get an elk that trip. We did not kill any elk.
You don't
Well,
say.
I know, and we almost we almost lost a horse and the guy that was on it, which they said that was kind of par for the course at the time, you know, because I got told the story that most people in Idaho don't, they'll have a horse, but they don't get it out but once or twice a year. And so you get horses that go up in the mountains, they're out of shape and they get tired, and next thing you know, they're rolling off the hill. So it was quite the experience for me. So I hunted for a couple of years, but that's what introduced me to hunting in the mountains, and it was an awesome time. I didn't realize people hunted like that, and so that was a great thing. But my next question, especially when I started seeing people backpack and taking everything on their backs, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get the Dutch ovens and all this food and everything in my backpack and up on the mountain.
Ask Joe. He'll tell you.
I
Just
can
get an
tell you.
REI
I can tell you
backpack.
exactly how to do it.
Right. So my experience, my deal with Initial Ascent, you know, maybe subconsciously I was creating a backpack that could haul lots of Dutch ovens and, you know, and finally make that base camp thing come true. I don't know.
That's really what those notches on the frame are for, is Dutch ovens, not quarters. You guys are
You
misleading
you
people.
just came up with a new use for the notches on the frame.
Now I'm gonna have to do it. I'm just gonna have to go out there and create a
Gotta
reel
try
just
it.
for. Yeah, here's the Dennis edition of the backpack, guys. It's on the website. I promise. It's
Yep, I want that.
Oh man, that's awesome. No, that's cool. You guys definitely had some very different experiences. I can see why Dennis got hooked, and then Joe, you just really embraced the suck and enjoyed it anyway. So Dennis over here was living in the Taj Mahal.
I still, in my life, I've never been to a camp like that ever. I mean, it's just wow. It's just a completely different way of thinking than backpacking. And I love to backpack. I love being in charge of my own stuff and seeing how light I can get it, and you know, seeing how prepared I can be with being so light. There's an art to it,
Mm-hmm.
and like Joe was saying, it's just, I mean, just trial and error. You know, you buy a few things here and there, and you just try to keep bringing that pack weight down. But then there comes a time where, and I think when you get to a certain age, you're gonna spend a few of those ounces on creature comforts. You know, especially like sleeping pad. You know, being one, and um, maybe a pillow. When you get older, you want some of those things. Sometimes you have to have those things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to make your time in the backcountry more enjoyable, and to get that much needed sleep that you know that you have to have.
Yeah, that good recovery. No, for sure. That's, that, and I agree. It's, I just, man, I love hearing people's stories, their first times going out in the mountain, because you get such drastic different views of your experiences here. I mean, that I don't think you could really get further apart in your experiences than you guys, and you guys, like, you really did. You guys both had some very drastically different experiences, and they still drew you to staying in the mountains and enjoying it. And I had a similar experience with a buddy of mine. He's my best friend now, and he's the one that really got me into Western hunting, because I was on the verge of moving back east. because if you're in the valley here, you just kind of look at it and you're like, man, it's dry. Being from the South, you understand the humidity and the greenery, and you're surrounded by wildlife everywhere, to the point where you're sometimes dodging deer on the road. To go from that to this desert and just surrounded by concrete, it was kind of frustrating. Then even when you look at the mountains, they're dry, they're not green, they don't change like the Appalachian Mountains do in the fall. I notice it now, but back then, like, it was drastically different. And so being able to get up in the mountains, and I remember when he first invited me on a hunt, and he's one of those guys that's always like, on to the next ridge. He doesn't like to sit in glass. I think the longest I've gotten him to sit in glass was 20 minutes. I think that's the longest. And so, like, when I hear people talk about glassing for hours, I'm like, that would be nice sometimes, but no, like, that's what we say on Brent's headstone. It's going to say on to the next ridge. Cause that's really like, he'll glass. He doesn't see anything. He's gone. He's like, you can catch me over there or not, whatever, but I'm going. And he's just one of those guys. And so, but anyway, I absolutely love it. Now, go up by myself, take my boys up. We'll go up with other guys as well. And I just absolutely love it. Fell in love with the mountains. The first time I came across a mule deer was actually on a college campus. And I literally looked at my girlfriend at the time. I was like, who put antlers on that horse? Like, because like, I'm so used to whitetail, and even, in the South, we have small whitetail. We don't have like Illinois, Ohio whitetails. And so, I look at it and I was like, man, there was a cougar on campus chasing these mule deer. I mean, they were just bedded right there, and I'm like, well, these are horses. These are not deer. I don't know what you're talking about. And so, just experiences like that, it's so much fun, and it gets you hooked. But, I guess I don't need to ask Joe, why he created Initial Ascent. So we'll go to Dennis. No, I'm kidding. Joe, how did you guys come up with this? I guess, were you guys working together elsewhere? Did you both come up with an idea for a backpack company? Like, how did you come across Dennis and start this company up, you guys?
Yeah. I mean, Dennis and I used to go to church together, and we never spoke to each other much there. I was a greeter, so I would say hello, good morning. That was about it. And but we would see each other at church, and we knew our kids were roughly right close in age. And then Dennis and I actually my youngest boy Ty was on Dennis's son Trey's flag football team. And I saw Dennis over there at one of the early practices, and I said, I knew that guy looked familiar, and I'm like, well, I'm just gonna go introduce myself. So I went over, introduced myself to Dennis, and next thing you know, we're visiting at all the practices, and then getting to know each other at the games on the weekends, which just led to us having discussions around common interests, which was out in the hunting side of things. And then we got involved in a small group together, and just getting to know each other more and more. And we ended up doing some bear and turkey hunting together. I think were our first trips up north into up around Kamei. And that just led to conversations around different packs. By this time I had moved off the REI backpack, and was trying all different kinds of packs that were out on the marketplace. And then Dennis and I would just talk to each other about, hey, what do you like about this? What do you like about that? We would trade packs out and try different packs on, so Dennis would have a pack, I'd have a pack, and we'd switch it out a little bit. And it just led to a lot of really good conversations around hunting and the outdoors and gear. And at the same time, while all this is going on, our families became really, really close. We started going to the Western Hunt Expo together as families. It was just something that our kids look forward to, we look forward to as adults. And we would go every year, our two families, and just had an absolute blast going down to the expo down in Salt Lake. So this went on for years and years. And one of the things that Dennis and I always gravitated toward at the expo were the backpacks, because there were just things out there at that time where there were certain aspects that you liked about this pack, but there was not a perfect pack out there. And I had different things that I wanted in a pack than, and Dennis had specific things that he wanted in a pack. And it just led to a lot of back and forth, back and forth. And I can remember we were at our small group, and Dennis and I were outside, and we were talking specifically about one pack. I won't say the manufacturer, but they had this beaver tail that flipped up that kind of created a like meat shelf on the outside of the pack. And I remember saying to Dennis, man, that would be a cool concept if you flipped it the other way and were able to hook it into the shoulder straps and you could make a chair, right, to lean back into. And I remember Dennis saying, well, you should go build that. You should go make a backpack doing that. And I said, we should do it together. And it was just small talk. But that was the first conversation that I remember us talking about it. And from there it just continued. And I remember Dennis and I were at the expo one year, and we just were kind of like, you know what, we could do this. We could build a backpack that really kind of does everything we want it to do. But then it was like, where do you start, right? I mean, our background certainly is not engineering, so we started down the path working with Boise State, and I had a relationship with there on a different project that I had worked on years before. They had what they called the Boise Tech Help Division, which was basically engineers at a reduced cost because you'd leverage students as well as engineers. And that really took us to a point where we had a testable prototype. And I want to say, Dennis, we probably spent 2 years, I would guess, kind of in there, a year and a half working with them.
Mm-hmm.
And it got us to a point though where we could actually go test a frame. And it was kind of similar to the shape that we have today. It didn't have any contours or anything like that. But this would have been around 2015, 2016. And Dennis and I actually were heading out to New Zealand on a once in a lifetime type hunt. And, we were heading over there, and we made the decision that, you know what, we're going to go over with our backpacks, at least the frame and suspension. Well, we didn't get that far, but we got the frame done. And so we did. We makeshifted a backpack, and we're pulling pieces and parts from different companies to kind of put something together. But here we go off on this epic hunt of a lifetime, and we're not taking any other packs other than our framed pack. And we go. And I mean, we totally rolled the dice, which was so stupid when you look back on it. But we got over there, and it was pretty awesome, man, because I think I shot a stag, and that was the first animal that we kind of actually got to put on the pack. And then Dennis shot his stag, and then he shot a chamois, and then we both harvested tars, and we got to actually use it. And it was like, wow, it worked. It held up, right? It didn't break. And we knew that we had something because it was comfortable carrying heavy loads. And that was really what Dennis and I kind of set out when it was all said and done. It's like, how do we design something that's going to carry heavy loads more comfortably? That was our goal, right? And so when we got back from that trip, we started working with another engineering firm that could take it a little bit further. And then we transitioned to a different engineering firm who we work with today to really take it from where it was to an actual product that we could sell. And Dennis and I, gosh, we spent the next year and a half just working night and day coming up with all of the different things that we wanted to do, not only from the frame and suspension, but with the bag design, with the hip belt design, all of those things. And it was 2017, we were at the expo, and like we had gone every year. And we really hadn't told anybody about this, that we were doing this. And I remember Dennis and I talked about, hey, we're going to have to get a booth some point. And I went over and signed us up for a 10 by 20 booth. And I came back to Dennis, and at this point, all we had was our frame done. No, the frame wasn't even done, but we were more along the way with our frame than anything else. And I said to Dennis, I said, hey, bud, I got good news, man. He's like, what? I said, we got a booth for next year. We got 1 year, man, to get this thing figured out. And I mean, reality hit us, right in the face. Because I mean, at that point, we didn't have a bag figured out. We didn't have shoulder straps and hip belts, but we knew we had a foundation that worked. And now we just had to go build it and make it so you could produce it. And it was a stressful year. I mean, I tell you, had we tried to do it a year or two earlier, some of the materials that we use in our frame didn't exist in the U.S. Couldn't have made the frame to perform at the level it does today. So it was definitely the Lord opening doors when they needed to be open. And it's certainly worked out well, and that's kind of how we got to where we are today, at least, to the launch of it in 2018.
That's amazing. That's really cool. And I mean, man, I've got so many jokes. I could think of how you guys came up with what you've got, but man, honestly, it's cool that you went on your lifetime or once in a lifetime hunt with, like, you had so much faith in what you guys had built that that's the pack you took.
Yeah.
There's not, I know you're saying that maybe that's crazy, stupid, whatever, but at the same time, like, that shows the level of confidence that you guys had, that you had something that would work. And the fact that the first animal that was put in an Initial Ascent pack was a red stag, man, like, that's a dream hunt for sure. Like, red
Yeah.
stags are awesome. And so that's really cool that you guys went out and you did that. And again, it really does kind of all start with small talk and these ideas that you're throwing out with good friends, and just tossing things back and forth. And so that's cool that's how you guys got started. And I mean, I don't think I've ever heard that story before. So that's really cool. And then 2018, you guys got started. Joe kind of lit the fire and was like, "Hey, we've got a booth. Dennis, we got to have a pack ready." So
Yeah, this dude snuck off. I was not paying attention.
Oh.
He snuck off and didn't even tell me what he was going to do. He just comes back with a big smile on his face. And yeah, it was like that. You remember
It was game on.
you remember in Christmas Vacation when Clark tells the family, or somebody in the family asks if he brought an axe, for the Christmas tree, and that boom, that sound effect, that's what went through my head.
Oh, that's awesome. But you guys made it happen. So I guess, Dennis, is that a fair story there, what Joe said, or do you have some details to throw in there, or do you want to start from where he said, we've got a booth,
No,
and go from there?
absolutely. And I'll add one thing to that. Me personally, I had been dealing with back issues for years, and ever since I think 1995, I believe, is when I had my back injury, and it was a lower back injury, and I had just struggled with it. And so all the packs that I owned, I just couldn't find anything that would work for me and the way my back was. And so, that was one kind of personal thing for me in the designing of the suspension and the frame and everything, is that, I had in the back of my head, this has to work for my back. This has to solve this problem, for me. And we spent a lot of time, like Joe was saying, just on the frame itself, trying to get it right. And we did. It turned out great. And, my back thanks me. And I truly think, for me, and you'd be surprised at how many people, especially older folks, that are past, 35, 40, they you'd be surprised how many back injuries and how many lower back problems there are out there. I had no idea. I thought I was on, but there's a lot of them. And one of the things about this, we believe, is that this is going to add longevity to your hunting career, if you want to call it that. We think this will add years, um, because of the frame we've created, the suspension we have, and the ability to carry heavy loads more comfortably. So that's to me, that is something that's very important. I think it's starting to become really evident, at least to me personally, because um, I feel like I'm going to be able to hunt a lot longer, with the back that I have, and um, I'm pretty excited, about that possibility. But yeah, 2018, we showed up at Western Hunt Expo and hadn't told anybody what we were doing. other than a few people that were testing, for us out there. And we showed up, and I think there was shock and awe was kind of a thing. And I know it was, we were in awe of the show. We were in awe of everything, but I think a lot of people were shocked that another group would bring a backpack to the marketplace in a very crowded space. And it was a great show for us. We got to fit a lot of people with packs, and we didn't have the spiel down, like we definitely like we do now. Then we were just kind of telling our experience and showing them how we put the pack on, and this is what is going to work for you. And I forget how many packs we sold that first expo, but I think it really shocked us how many packs we did end up selling, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. And we went into the next year and got a little bit bigger booth, and it was another great experience. And that first show, we started out with our IA4K, in Coyote, and the Pannier load carrier, and basically that was it. That's all we had for a pack. Um, so we've expanded things a lot now. Got 4 colors. We've got 5 different configurations now that are going on the same modular frame and suspension. So it's come a long way since 2018 for sure.
Yeah, no, I'd definitely say it has. I think part of your new spiel at the show, Joe, you should bring that backpack and all the old gear that you had in it and be like, this is what you can carry with our frame.
Yeah, a whole lot more comfortably. I promise you that.
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, and with your 8K, it'll fit.
it'll
That's
hold
right.
it. It'll all fit in the 8K.
That is
I
correct.
told Dennis
Yeah,
literally
that
when
and
we
Dutch
first were
ovens.
testing. Yeah, I remember we got one of our first prototype backs on the 8K, which it's a lengthy process. You go through testing all these bags out. But I remember grabbing that bag and kind of leaning it up to me. I said, Dennis, I got a new sleeping bag. I mean, this thing's so big, I could use it as a sleeping bag. So it's definitely got Ryan Lampers written all over it and Brian Call, that's for sure. It's their style of bag.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. So just kind of a breakdown. Like I love the way you guys have explained your story and how things have come into play. And, I was going to ask the question of why in such a saturated market, because everyone knows there's so many different backpacks out there. And I've run a couple different ones. And I will say that your backpack is definitely the best at carrying weight that I've had. And that was a big problem that I had because I'm an overpacker. Anyone that's gone with me camping, backpacking, hunting, like you can try and cut stuff out for me, but I want to carry my water in. I don't want to just wait for water, possibly that's up there. And I'm going to have the good snacks. Like you're just going to be well fed when you go up with me, and I'm willing. And that's why I do my squats and that's why I do my deadlifts and all that. So I can carry it up there. I'm not going to be the fastest guy, but I'll be your pack mule and I'll carry your good snacks. So now that I've got a pack that can carry all that weight comfortably, that could be dangerous for me. I could possibly go in 150 pounds rather than coming out 150 pounds.
Your hunting partners are going to love you.
Oh, I know, right? I'm going to have those Dutch ovens dangling off the side.
Yep.
And I'm going to have all the good Coleman sleeping bags and everything tucked in there. No, but
right.
it's no, but in all reality, like I love that there's the different configurations that all fit on one frame. And on top of that, you guys have a frame. I don't know exactly when you launched it, but the kids women's frame. That's something too that a lot of people don't offer. You have the smaller frame for kids and for women that generally women that are wanting to get into hunting, backpacking, etc., struggle finding a frame that will be short enough for them so that they're not when they're going up the steep inclines, they're not hitting their head on the back of the frame or on the fabric or whatever. And then when they're trying to glass uphill, they're not whacking their head into stuff on the back of their, behind them because the frame's too big, or the suspension is too steep on the load lifters, all of that stuff. And then on top of that, there's those of us getting kids into backpacking, there's something that they can grow into, So you guys have created that. You guys have solved that issue as well, which is amazing. I want to commend you on that, because not many people will pay attention to that, because it's not a huge market compared to men that are going out and hunting, backpacking. But let's kind of break it down real quick for those that are, and I'll leave the link down below for the listeners and those watching it. You can go check this out kind of while we're talking about it. But you guys have what's the frame itself is called, the men's version is called
the Integris frame.
The Integris. Yep. Perfect. So we've got the Integris frame, and then you have the pannier and the lid, which is basically your day mode. So the pannier is basically a load shelf. It's got a cinch tight pocket in it as well that you can put. Some people like to run bladders. If you want to put puffies in there, snacks, whatever, it's got a built-in pocket to it. And then it's got that load lifter that you could put a dry bag or some other kind of bag just for the day to be able to carry your stuff for the day. And then the lid is what? How many cubic inches is the lid?
Yeah, it's 600 cubic inches.
Okay. So it's pretty significant. So all of that, for a day pack is amazing. And then you have the opportunity that if you do end up killing something, you can put it in the load shelf and bring it back to camp, right? Then you've got your 2K pack, which is about how many cubic inches?
2,500
ish.
It's about 2,500.
2,500. Perfect. Okay, so you got the 2,500 cubic inches pack that will also hold the pannier up underneath it against the frame, and also you could put the lid on it as well, so you can expand that out to 3,200 cubic inches. Yeah, about 3,000. Perfect. And then you move up from there. You get the 4K, like what you're talking about, kind of your workhorse, middle of the road. That's about 4,400 cubic inches.
Yeah, about 40.
Yeah, it's closer to probably 46.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay, so 4,600 cubic inches plus the lid, you can get close to 5,000 ish. And then you move up from there. You've got your 6K, and you can run the lid on that, and the pannier will fit in between the frame and each of these bags. And then now you've got your 8K, which is the monster people that like to have the big bags, and you've got some cool new features with that as well. So what, I guess, each of you guys individually, what's your kind of go-to pack out of all the configurations that you have? Which ones, I guess, Joe, which one's your go-to pack?
Yeah, I would say for most hunting conditions, the 4K works out extremely well, right? And, if you're going to go anywhere 3 to upwards of 7 days backpacking, which is typically about the type of hunting that I'm typically doing, the 4K is just perfect, right? To Dennis's point earlier, you get better at learning how to pack a pack over time and what gear, the gear goes in this spot and so forth. So for me, my workhorse, it fits our portfolio. It is the 4K. It works extremely well for the vast majority of people out there.
Perfect. And then Dennis, which one's your go-to now? I know you've got the plan to run the 8K for all of your hunts. You were telling people about that at MAF this year, just to put it through its paces. Is that your go-to pack for right now, or what's your go-to pack?
I've also been running the 4K, quite a bit. That is kind of my go-to pack as well. It seems like just with the nature of the business and with how many employees Joe and I have, which are not many. We don't get away and hunt. We joined this industry thinking that, oh yeah, if we own a pack company, boy, we can hunt a lot. But that's not the case. So it seems like the longest hunts we get to go on these days, at least 5-6 days at the most. And so yeah, that 4K really fits my style as well. And, one of the things that Joe and I do a lot of, and what we've done it together a bunch, we'll pack in there with that 4K. And so let's say we're going to spend 5 days in there. We would pack in there with the 4K and then get to where we're going to camp. And typically we get to where we're going to go, and then we choose a spot to where we can hunt lots of directions out of that one camp. So we'll spike out, and we basically take our camp off and take that 4K bag off, and then we'll hunt with our lid and our pannier in day mode. And it's light, it's fast, you've got everything you need for the day's hunt, and you're packing meat immediately. So we really like the versatility.
Awesome. No, I like it. That's there's so many options you can mix and match. You guys have a lot of accessories as well to go along with it to organize your bag. There's multiple pockets throughout each of the bags, and as each bag gets bigger, there's more pockets and availability to organize things. I really do think you guys have an option out there for just about everyone. I don't really, I can't really think. And someone asked me, I can't remember if Joe was there or Dennis. But someone asked me, like, what's something that I would change personally? And in the time that I've run the bag, I can't find something that I would change about it. There's really not much that I could think of
Yeah, and I think
that it doesn't fit the bill.
Yeah.
Oh, what were you going to say, Joe?
No, I think it's, I appreciate you saying that. And I think, you mentioned it earlier about the female frame or the youth frame, right? And that was something that, Dennis and I, we were pretty passionate about that side of the business as well, because year after year at the expo, we would have young kids or we would have females come in the booth, and you would just see the disappointment on their face year after year after year, because they've tried every pack on, and to your point earlier, I mean, it was riding, the shoulder straps were always above their ears. And I could tell you, when Dennis and I started prototyping that, we tested the crap out of that frame. When we started prototyping that and testing it, the feedback we got from the ladies and the youth on it, I mean, it was such an awesome experience. But then when we were at the expo and we actually got, a lot of people trying it on, and just to see the ladies come in or see the kids come in and actually finally have a pack that fits them. I mean, that's why we created the video called Finally, because it was just fitting, because the ladies were literally, that was a word we kept hearing over and over and over again, was finally somebody has taken us serious and built a pack for us. And we're just super excited to be able to do that, because it brings more people, to Dennis's point earlier, they are more likely to go hunt because they're more comfortable and they're going to do it for longer now.
Exactly. No, that's outstanding. And I can definitely understand, that frustration of not having a piece of gear that maybe fits you, but you see how everyone else is using it and you want to be able to accomplish those same things. And just for those that haven't gone to an in-person event or gone to your guys' headquarters up there in Idaho and actually been fitted for a pack, for those out there listening, if you are at any of the Mountain Archery Fest events that you guys are going to be at, or Western Hunt Expo, I highly recommend that you guys, or if you're in Idaho, go and test out these packs in person at any of the events that Initial Ascent is going to be at, because it's crazy. Every time I see someone, either Dennis or Joe, tell them, hey, we're going to put 150 pounds on your back. Let's start with 50. They get, fitted, they get everything tightened up, right, and everything. And then you throw those 2 extra 50 pounders on their sides. And the look on people's faces, I tried to capture that a little bit here at the last Mountain Archery Fest event, and I'll probably post some of those videos. But the people that and some of these people don't really look like they're in good shape. Like you could tell that they don't go to the gym and do squats fairly often, and they can still stand up straight with 150 pounds on their back. Like that, whereas most packs are either going to slide down your back a little bit. You got to lean forward, engage your core. You're walking with your walking sticks a lot more. You're leaning forward, which is going to in turn mess with your back in the long haul. I think that you guys have done something that is, I mean, I haven't seen it done elsewhere. There's some great packs out there that feel really good until you get about 50, 60 pounds on you. And then you're kind of like, this really doesn't feel good. And the fact that you guys are so confident in your pack that you'll sit there with 150 pounds ready to go and throw it on someone's back at the expo and say, go walk around for a little bit, come back. And the look on people's faces when they do that, I think is outstanding. So you guys have you've created something that's really great. I can't wait to pack my first animal out with it. I didn't draw anything here in Utah, but we've got our over-the-counter elk, and then I've got a couple out-of-state hunts. So, and then maybe a doe. Hopefully, if I get a doe, I'll just throw it in the backpack and just take it out whole. But it really is something that you guys have done. I again want to commend you on that, because I love people that take an idea. You guys came together, didn't know each other from Adam, and you came together, started small talk, and just came up with this idea, pieced things together, and went after it. And I really appreciate when people do that. And then on top of that, the fact that you've been successful with it. It wasn't just a failed idea. You guys tried and tried until you made it happen. So it's been awesome to see that. And I can't wait to see where it goes from here.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a lot of fun. It sure has.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So we're saying sidekicks here. Are we doing Batman and Robin? Is that what kind of like? Oh man. Oh, that's awesome. So if people want to find you guys, where can they find you? I'll leave the links down below for everyone, so you don't have to necessarily memorize it, but where can they find you guys at on social media, YouTube, etc.? Okay, awesome. I'll leave those down below. And I guess my last question for you guys, because my kids asked me this, if you guys haven't seen their packs, again, go to their site, check out their site. There's a dude with orange hair, orange beard, silhouetted. My kids asked, how did they get your picture and put it on the pack before they even knew you? Who is the basis of that, or is that just something you guys came up with?
Yeah.
I was meant to run these packs. That's what you're saying. Oh, that's awesome. But yeah, no, my kids, seriously, they asked me that because on the packs it's orange. I know on your shirt it's a gray color, but on the packs it's orange, and so they were asking me that. And I get people that they'll see the sticker on my truck and they're like, "Is that one of your new logos?" I'm like, "No, nope, it's just the pack." And then we'll get a conversation started about that. But yeah, no, that's awesome, guys. Well, I really appreciate your time. I really do. I know we all have busy lives. We got stuff going on, and I really appreciate you guys willing to hop on here for an hour. And talk about what you're passionate about. And I also just kind of want to point out, this whole time in your background, I've been looking at the two pictures that you guys have. I love seeing people's offices because it kind of can tell a story of a person, and the working hands behind Dennis, and then the fire with the Initial Ascent hat, it just epitomizes everything that you guys are about. So I love it. You guys keep it up. And again, thanks so much for being on here, guys. Definitely go check out their packs. Again, I'll leave the links down below. And of course, get out, live your life, and love it.